Have you ever felt it? That feeling, it's almost physical, like you're on a treadmill and someone is secretly, slowly turning up the speed. You're working faster, you're talking to people instantly, you're surrounded by all this incredible technology that was sold to us on the promise of saving time. And yet, the feeling isn't calm, it's not leisure. It's a feeling of being breathless, of being constantly one step behind. You feel more crunched for time, more time poor than ever. Well, if that sounds familiar, it's because it's not just you. It's almost all of us. This is the big central paradox of living in the modern world. And it turns out this feeling has a name. It has a really complex history and a deep sociological reason behind it. And in this explainer, we're going to dig into it. We're going to go past just the feeling and get to a real diagnosis. It's amazing, isn't it? Almost 1,600 years ago, St. Augustine just perfectly nailed this really frustrating thing about time. We live and breathe it. It dictates our lives, our schedules, our memories. We know it in our bones. But the second you try to grab it, to define it, to explain what it is, it just slips through your fingers. It's this mysterious, all-powerful force that our whole lives are built on. And before we can really tackle our own very modern problem with time, it's worth sitting with that mystery for a second. What even is it? Is it like a river, just flowing one way? Is it a circle, like the sun rising and setting, the seasons changing? For most of human history, time was tied to those natural things. The sun, the harvest, that was your clock. But modernity, it did something radical. It completely re-engineered time. It turned it into a grid, a resource. It became a set of abstract, identical units, hours, minutes, seconds, that you could count and manage and save, and most importantly, you could spend them or waste them. And it's this idea, the idea of time as a kind of currency, that really sets the stage for the trap we're in now. I mean, that's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? The 20th century promised us a future of leisure. So what happened? There's this great little fable. It's about a guy named Mr. Langmutt in this make-believe empire called Tempus. Back in the old days, his life was slow. If he wanted to copy a chapter of a book, well, that was a full day's work. Careful, slow, focused writing. If he needed to get a message to the next town over, that was a journey of a few hours. Lunch was a long, social thing with his coworkers. And then the revolution came. The photocopier shows up, and it promises to free him from all that boring writing. The telephone arrives, promising to make distance meaningless, communication instant. The microwave oven appears, and it promises to give him back his lunch hour for, reading poetry or thinking great thoughts. The promise of all this tech, put together, was a golden age of free time, a world where Mr. Langwood would finally have all these hours to himself. But that world never showed up. The photocopier just meant his boss expected him to produce 10 times as many documents. The phone just meant he was always on the clock. Work could find him anywhere. And the microwave? Well, that didn't give him an hour for poetry. It gave him 10 minutes to scarf down his lunch at his desk so he could get back to answering emails. The promise of saved time, it was a complete mirage. So why? Why does it work that way? To really start to understand this, let's look at this classic story. You've probably heard some version of it. So there's this high-flying investment banker, top of his game, completely stressed out. He finally takes a vacation to this tiny little coastal village. One morning, he's walking on the beach and he sees a local fisherman pulling in his little boat. He's got a few big, beautiful fish in there. The businessman is impressed and he asks the fisherman, "Hey, how long did it take you to catch those?" And the fisherman just shrugs and says, not too long. So the businessman is confused. He asks, "Well, why didn't you stay out longer and catch more fish?" And the fisherman explains, "I've got enough here to feed my family, have a little to sell, it's plenty." The businessman, he can't help himself. His brain is just wired for optimization. He launches into this whole pitch. "Listen," he says, "if you just spent more time fishing, you could catch way more fish. You could sell the extra and buy a bigger boat. With a bigger boat, you could go into deeper water, catch even more. Soon you could buy a whole fleet of boats, hire a crew. You could leave this village, open your own cannery, control the whole operation. You'd move to the big city, run your empire. You'd be a millionaire." The fisherman listens patiently, and then he asks, "Okay, and then what?" The businessman's face just lights up. Then you could retire. You could move to a quiet little coastal village, sleep in late, fish a little, play with your kids, take a siesta, just enjoy your life. The fisherman just smiles and says, "But isn't that what I'm doing right now?" Now, on the surface, that story feels like a pretty straightforward takedown of the modern rat race, right? It's like, why go through all that stress and misery just to wind up back where you started? It seems like a total waste. But and this is a huge but, the sociologist we're going to be talking about today, Hartmut Rosa, he says that if we stop there, we're missing the really scary part of the story. First off, he says, these two men are not in the same boat, literally. The fisherman has to fish. His family's survival depends on it. He doesn't have a ton of other options. The businessman, though, he has an endless menu of possibilities. He could be fishing, sure, but he could also be on his phone, closing a deal in Tokyo, or playing golf, or day trading. And this huge expansion of options, which we think of as freedom, actually creates this very modern anxiety. The fear of missing out, right? The pressure to always be making the best possible use of his time. But here's the absolute killer insight from Rosa. He calls it the slipping slope. The fisherman's world? It's pretty stable. The businessman's world is anything but. While he's sitting there on the beach talking to the fishermen, his competitors are out there inventing better fishing nets, finding cheaper labor, disrupting the entire market. His world is a battlefield of constant competition. If he stops to just fish for too long, he doesn't just miss a chance to get ahead, he actively starts to fall behind. He will lose his place. He will be made obsolete. He isn't just working hard for some far-off goal, he is running like mad just to keep from sliding backward down a hill that's getting steeper every day.
And that feeling of being on a slipping slope, of running as fast as you can just to stay in the exact same place, that is what we are going to diagnose today. So here's our game plan. We've just looked at this modern time paradox with the fisherman's story. Next up, we're going to dive deep into the huge question that our guide, Hartmut Rosa, is asking. Then we'll break down his main theory, the 3 different kinds of acceleration. After that, we'll look at what's actually driving this whole thing, the engines behind the machine. Then we'll face the really troubling consequences of all this, a state Rosa calls frenetic standstill. And we'll end on what might be the biggest question of all. Is it even possible to hit the brakes?
Okay, so this brings us to the man himself, the German sociologist Hartmut Rosa. Now, Rosa is part of a long line of thinkers who've tried to figure out what makes the modern world tick. But he's not just asking why we're so busy or why our gadgets are so fast. He is asking a question that is so big, so ambitious, that it's basically trying to find the one single key that unlocks our entire modern experience. It's a question that forces us to zoom way out, beyond our own personal feelings of being rushed, to see the giant, invisible systems that are pulling the strings. Okay, let's really break this monster of a question down, because every single piece of it is crucial. First part, why has social acceleration become an uncontrollable core feature? Notice the words he's using. Not a feature, but the core feature, the defining logic of our time. And even more important, it's uncontrollable. This isn't something we're choosing anymore. It's a system that's taken on a life of its own, and we're just along for the ride. Second part, reshaping our entire experience of life. So this isn't just about our work schedules or our commute times. He's saying this acceleration is changing everything. How we fall in love, how we raise our kids, how we think about who we are, how we see the world itself. Third part, through its technological, social, and personal dimensions. This is his framework. He's telling us it's not just one thing. It's a 3-headed beast, the speed of our tools, the speed of change in our culture, and the speed that results inside our own heads. And finally, the big one. And what are its ultimate consequences? This is the whole point. Does all this speed actually lead to that promised land of more life, more fulfillment? Or, and this is the scary alternative, does it lead to a new kind of prison, a deep sense of being cut off from our own lives, leaving us totally exhausted and just spinning our wheels?
To really get the power of what Rosa is doing, you have to know who he's arguing with, who he's building on. He's in a conversation with the absolute giants of sociology. So you have Karl Marx, who said the key to understanding modernity was commoditization. The way everything, from a forest to a person's workday, gets turned into a product you can buy and sell. Then you have thinkers like Max Weber and the Frankfurt School, who said the key was rationalization. The way society gets obsessed with efficiency, with rules, with control, until we're all trapped in what Weber called an iron cage of bureaucracy. Now, Rosa looks at these brilliant theories and says, yes, but you're missing something. You're missing the engine. He argues that there's a deeper, more basic force at work. It's the demand for acceleration that makes capitalism so frantic. It's the need for acceleration that drives us to rationalize and optimize everything. For Rosa, the master process, the thing that controls everything else, is the changing way we experience time itself. All right, so if acceleration is this master process, how does it actually show up in our lives? This is where we get into the real nuts and bolts of Rosa's theory. He says that our general feeling of being rushed and overwhelmed isn't just one big blob of stress. It's actually a system made up of 3 very different but totally interconnected types of acceleration. And the scary part is, they feed each other, creating a vicious cycle that just keeps spinning faster and faster.
So Rosa gives us 3 layers to peel back here, one at a time. The first one is the most obvious, the one we see every day: technological acceleration. This is all about speeding up how we get things done. The second one is a bit sneakier. It's the acceleration of social change. This is about how quickly our world itself changes around us. And the third one is the one we feel most intensely. It's the result of the other 2. The acceleration of the pace of life. That subjective feeling that we just don't have enough time. So let's dig into each one of these.
Okay, so this is the acceleration we're all familiar with. This is the one we usually cheer for. It's all about using technology to shrink the world by conquering time. Think about going from a horse and buggy, which would take you days to get across the state, to a bullet train that does it in a couple of hours. Or think about going from writing a letter, putting it in the mail, and waiting weeks for it to get to Europe, to sending an email that arrives basically before you've even lifted your finger from the mouse. We do this on purpose. The goal is to be more efficient, to save time. But, and this is the huge mind-bending paradox Rosa points out, for every hour that technology saves us, it ends up making our lives even more frantic. The invention of email didn't just make letter writing faster, it created a brand new expectation that you are always available, and that you will respond instantly, filling our days with hundreds of little tasks we never had before. That bullet train didn't just make our old trip faster, it made it possible to have meetings in 3 different cities in one day, which pretty soon became a professional expectation. The amount of stuff we have to do always grows faster than the technology we have to do it with.
Now, this second type of acceleration is much more subtle, but you could argue its effects are even more profound, more unsettling. This isn't about how fast we travel. It's about how fast the actual foundations of our world crumble and reform. Rosa calls this the contraction of the present. What he means by that is the amount of time that our current reality, our skills, our beliefs remain stable and reliable is shrinking fast. Just think about it. For almost all of human history, you could assume that the world your kids would grow up in would be pretty similar to your own. The wisdom and the values you pass down would still apply. But today, that's completely gone. The shelf life of everything has collapsed. The skills you pay a fortune to learn in university could be totally useless in 10 years. A career isn't a ladder you climb anymore. It's more like jumping between sinking lily pads. Family structures, politics, what we believe about the world, it's all changing so rapidly that the experience of one generation doesn't really mean much to the next. The past stops being a good map for the future, and we're just left floating, disoriented.
And this third one, this is the direct result of the other 2. This is the one that happens inside our own heads. This is the one we feel. It is our personal, subjective experience of this whole crazy system. It's that feeling of having a time famine, a total starvation for time, even when we're surrounded by dishwashers and smartphones that are supposed to be saving us all these hours. It's simple, really. When technology lets you do more things in a day, and when social change throws more choices and more demands at you, the result is this intense internal pressure to just keep up. It's the pressure that makes you check your email while you're talking to your kids. It's the pressure to optimize every single second of your day. It's the need to cram more experiences, more achievements, more life into every 24-hour box. And this is where our collective burnout comes from. It's that awful feeling of being chased by your own calendar, your own to-do list, and that constant nagging fear that you're falling behind. It transforms living from a journey into just a checklist of things to get through as fast as possible.
Okay, so we've seen what's happening. We have a pretty good diagnosis of the 3 ways our world is getting faster and faster, technologically, socially, and inside our own heads. But that just leads to the biggest question of all. Why? Why is this happening? Is this whole runaway train just some kind of weird accident of progress? Or is there a deeper logic, a hidden motor that's pushing this whole thing forward? What's the engine of this machine? So Rosa says it's not just one thing. He points to 3 different engines that are all working together, all pushing each other to go faster.
The first and the most powerful one is the economic engine, specifically the basic logic of capitalism, which has to grow or it dies, and growth comes from acceleration. Second, there's the cultural engine. This is that deep-seated belief in modern life that being faster will make your life better, that it'll give you an edge over everyone else. And third, there's a more abstract one he calls the structural engine. This is about how modern society is sliced up into different zones, like your work life, your family life, the legal system, and they're all in a race to keep up with each other. But while all three are really important, it's that economic engine that's really in the driver's seat. At the very heart of our speed-obsessed society is this incredibly powerful and, frankly, kind of scary feedback loop. It's a loop between our economy and our technology. See, capitalism, unlike the economic systems that came before it, can't just sit still. It's based on a simple rule: grow or die. And to get that growth, you have to make more stuff, sell more stuff, and innovate faster than the other guy. This constant pressure for growth is what drives technological acceleration. We need faster factories, faster shipping, faster communication, and a faster cycle of making old products seem obsolete. But then, in turn, that new, faster technology creates the possibility for even more growth, which then demands even more speed to stay competitive. It is a closed loop. It feeds itself, and Rosa calls it a fatal loop. The smartphone market is the perfect example. Apple releases a slightly faster iPhone. To have any hope of competing, Samsung and Google have to rush to develop an even faster model. The time that a phone is considered new shrinks from a couple of years to maybe a few months. The system itself needs this insane pace, not because it's making us happier, but simply so the system can keep going. The only goal is to go faster. So what happens when this fatal loop just spins and spins, faster and faster, completely out of control? What's the endgame? What happens when this train of modernity is moving so fast that we can't even hold on anymore, let alone try to steer it? This brings us to the really devastating climax of Rosa's diagnosis. It's a condition that he calls frenetic standstill. And it is a deep, dark paradox that I think captures the feeling of modern life perfectly. You've probably heard of Karl Marx's idea of labor alienation. That's the feeling of a factory worker who spends all day making, say, a beautiful chair, but he doesn't own the chair. He has no control over it, and he feels totally disconnected from the thing he created. Well, Rosa says that today we are suffering from a new and maybe even deeper kind of alienation, time alienation. We are no longer in charge of our own time. We talk about making time or managing time, but if we're honest, it feels like time is managing us. It feels like we're being chased by our own lives, constantly reacting to the next ping from our phone, the next deadline, the next social obligation. We get cut off from our own life story, from our own history, from the natural rhythms of our own bodies and emotions. Our life starts to feel less like a story we're writing ourselves and more like a chaotic script that's been handed to us, and we're just desperately trying to keep up.
One of the most damaging results of all this is what Rosa calls the shrinking of the present. We touched on this before, but it's a huge consequence. When social and technological change hits this fever pitch, the world that your parents knew becomes almost an alien planet. Their advice, their map of the world, it just doesn't work anymore. The past is no longer a reliable guide, but at the same time, the future becomes this foggy, unknowable mess. I mean, how can you make a 5-year career plan when your entire industry might be automated in 3 years? How can a government build a bridge that's supposed to last 50 years when they have no idea what the climate or the technology will be like then? So we get trapped. We get stuck in this frantic, unstable, fleeting present moment. It's like trying to run on a patch of ice that's melting under your feet. There's no solid ground behind you and no clear path ahead of you.
And all of this leads us to the final devastating diagnosis: frenetic standstill. It is the ultimate paradox. On the one hand, if you look at our society, it is in a state of constant, manic, frenzied motion. We are innovating, communicating, producing, and moving faster than any humans in history. But because this frantic pace has no goal, no direction, no purpose other than speed for its own sake, we end up feeling spiritually, politically, and existentially stuck. It is the exact sensation of sprinting as hard as you can on a treadmill. There's sweat, there's motion, there's exhaustion, but you're not going anywhere. It's a car with its engine screaming, its wheels spinning furiously, but it's just stuck in the mud.
The more hyperactive our society seems on the surface, the more rigid and stuck it feels deep down. We're moving like crazy when we're not actually getting anywhere that matters. This quote just sums it all up, doesn't it? The whole promise of modernity, the sales pitch behind all this speed and innovation was that it would lead to more life, more experiences, more freedom, more human flourishing. We all got on this train of progress willingly. We believed it was taking us somewhere better. But now, the train itself is moving with a logic of its own, with such a violent, uncontrollable speed that we have to spend all of our energy, all of our vitality, all of our life just trying not to get thrown off. The tool, speed, has completely swallowed the goal, a good life. We're not riding the train anymore. We're serving it.
So, after all of that, after this really deep dive, from the fisherman on the beach to the guts of the capitalist machine, from the 3 kinds of acceleration to this crisis of frenetic standstill, we are left with what has to be the single hardest and most important question that comes out of all this. If the whole system is built for nothing but speed, what on earth can we do about it?
If Rosa's diagnosis is right, then this feeling of being rushed isn't just a personal failing. It's not because you're bad at time management. It is the basic, structural logic of the world we live in. The system was not designed with a brake pedal. It was designed with only an accelerator. So after everything we've looked at today, we have to face this final, brutal question. Is slowing down just a matter of personal choice, deciding to do yoga or taking a digital detox weekend? Or are those gestures kind of like bringing a bucket to try and stop a tidal wave? Are we all just passengers on a train that was built without any brakes, a train whose only destination is to go faster and faster until it eventually, inevitably flies off the tracks? Is it even possible to hit the brakes?